And here is the Writer's Almanac for Thursday. It's the 31st of May, 2018. It's the birthday of Walt Whitman, born in West Hills, Long Island, New York, 1819. Worked as a typesetter in a print shop. He was a teacher, a journalist, newspaper editor, worked as a carpenter, which was his father's trade, and he was living with his mother in Brooklyn when he read an essay by Ralph Waldo Emerson, the poet, which said the new United States needed a poet to capture its spirit, and the young Whitman decided he was that poet. He later said, I was simmering, simmering, simmering. Emerson brought me to a boil. He began work on his collection Leaves of Grass, writing an American epic celebrating the common man, did most of the typesetting for the book himself, made sure the edition would fit in a pocket, paid for the publication of 795 copies out of his own pocket. He was 37 years old. At the beginning, Whitman was criticized for being openly erotic. One reviewer called the book a mass of stupid filth. He kept expanding Leaves of Grass. 146 poems were added for the third edition. Thoreau did not care for his poetry, neither did Willa Cather. She referred to Whitman as that dirty old man. But Ralph Waldo Emerson praised him as the most extraordinary piece of wit and wisdom America has yet contributed. Walt Whitman left New York when his brother was wounded in the Civil War. He walked all the way to Virginia and to Washington, D.C. to serve as a volunteer hospital nurse. And though he was unconventional in his manners and his clothing, Whitman found work as a clerk in the Department of the Interior until one of the brass discovered that he was the man who had written Leaves of Grass, and he was fired. But a friend of Whitman's arranged for him to be transferred to the Attorney General's office, and the friend wrote a pamphlet entitled The Good Gray Poet, which praised Whitman's nobleness of character. And the pamphlet helped to change the average reader's perception of Walt Whitman. Instead of a bawdy nonconformist, he became the good gray poet, the wise old man. He spent the last 20 years of his life revising, expanding Leaves of Grass. The eighth and final edition came out in 1891. Whitman said it was at last complete after 33 years of hackling at it, all times and moods of my life, fair weather and foul, all parts of the land, in peace and war, young and old. Today, most scholars agree that Whitman probably was gay, though when he was asked directly toward the end of his life, he declined to answer. Walt Whitman, who said, I cock my hat as I please, indoors and out. Born on this day on Long Island in 1819. Here's a poem for today by Walt Whitman, Section 5 of Crossing Brooklyn Ferry. What is it then between us? What is the count of the scores or hundreds of years between us? Whatever it is, it avails not. Distance avails not, and place avails not. I too lived. Brooklyn of ample hills was mine. I too walked the streets of Manhattan Island and bathed in the waters around it. I too felt the curious, abrupt questioning stir within me. In the day among crowds of people, sometimes they came upon me. In my walks home late at night, or as I lay in my bed, they came upon me. I too had been struck from the float forever held in solution. I too had received identity by my body. That I was, I knew, was of my body, and what I should be, I knew I should be of my body. Section 5 of Crossing Brooklyn Ferry by Walt Whitman. That's the Writer's Almanac, supported by the Poetry Foundation, offering poetry podcasts to listen to and thousands of poems to read at poetryfoundation.org. And by the Mosaic Foundation of Rita and Peter Hayden. Here's another poem for today by John Bream, Passage. In all the woods that day, I was the only living thing fretful, exhausted, or unsure. Giant fir and spruce and cedar trees that had stood their ground 300 years, stretched in sunlight calmly, unimpressed by whatever it was that held me hunched and tense above the stream, biting my nails, calculating all my impossibilities. Nor did the water pause to reflect or enter into my considerations. It found its way over and around a crowd of rocks in easy flourishes, in laughing evasions and shifts in direction. Nothing could slow it down for long. It even made a little song out of all the things that got in its way, a music against the hard edges of whatever might interrupt its going. Passage by John Breen from Help Is on the Way, published by the University of Wisconsin Press and used by permission here on the Writer's Almanac. Produced by Kathy Roach and Nick Vetter. Be well, do good work, and keep in touch.